I have generated thousands of dollars for Goldsmiths in the past couple of months. And in this video, I'll just talk about what I have seen successful Goldsmith shop owners actually do on a day-to-day basis regarding customer acquisition and just in general, how they actually see their business and how they act on it. So I will also do the inverse of that. So basically, what not to do in your business or what unsuccessful Goldsmith shop owners actually do, right? So all of these are going to be related to getting customers, marketing, sales, lead nurture, and just growing the profit and revenue of your business, right? Because if you're a Goldsmith, the number one problem of Goldsmiths is getting more customers in general in the industry. So this is just a video to maybe you can use to help you with that. So the one thing that we have seen successful Goldsmith business owners understand is that it takes more than a week sometimes. Now, obviously, this is tongue in cheek. This is I've been being a little bit sarcastic, obviously, but the thing is that it takes more time than you expect. So when I have spoken to successful goldsmiths, they have normally done something for an enormous period of time, and I will get what that enormous period of time normally means in a little bit later in the video. But whether you are 2 years in, 3 years in, just remember that there are successful goldsmith business owners that have been doing this for 40 years, right? So it takes more than a week sometimes. That's just number one, just to reset expectations on how long it actually takes to be successful. So number two is that we have seen that goldsmiths, shop owners who are really, really successful in growing in their business and getting a bunch of customers, especially when it comes to marketing, they double down on their winners. So what does doubling down on their winners mean? It means, let's say you run 10 ads, right? Let's just say you run 10 ads. Now, maybe this is the same campaign, but you just vary the ad a little bit to test it, right? So for example, let's say one ad tanks, another ad tanks, another ad tanks, and maybe like two kind of do well, right? But in general, eight failed, right? Now, most goldsmiths will say ads fail, ads don't work, ads are shitty, right? And they just turn off the ads. But what we have seen and who we have spoken to when it comes to actually successful goldsmith business owners is that they saw those two that worked and they just doubled down on this and then took all the budget that they were spending on all eight or all 10 of them and just inserted into those two that actually worked. And then they gave them just huge multiples, right? So they doubled down on their winners. That was number two. And that's one of the things that has impacted me just personally in my business is that you double down on your winners, especially when it comes to ads. So never take the foot off the brake and just double down on the winners. Number three is that you have to spend money to make money. Obviously, this is in regards to ads in specific. So if you look at the funnel, it's lead generation, lead nurture, and sales. Obviously, if to build a team, you have to spend money, right? You have to hire people, you have to train people. It takes time and money. But in this case, I'm specifically talking about Goldsmith ads, is that goldsmiths tend to say, okay, I will have a budget of like 5,000 kroner. And then they will they won't make any money of that 5,000 kroner except on one ad. And then they're just going to shut it all off. Kind of the same thing I was talking about on the slide before, is that you actually have to commit to spending an enormous amount of money for a long time so that you can actually start getting returns on this thing. Obviously, you won't need to spend an enormous amount of money for a long time. You are going to have to spend an enormous amount of money on ads, but not for long until you start getting customers. But you do have to commit, okay? Because it takes it takes time, I would say, to find the winners, right? That's why we do an enormous amount in the first 48 hours, is that so that we can just grab all the winners and test them, just test all the ads inside 48 hours so that we can grab the winner and then just nail it down on that. So you have to spend money to make money. That's something that Goldsmith shops or even Goldsmith franchises who have become huge, big franchises with multiple locations, they understand that. Then number four is that we have seen that they do the same thing for over 10 years. In fact, I have spoken to several Goldsmith business have been doing this for over 40 years. They have been doing this since the early 80s, late 70s, right? So the at least what I have seen with those goldsmiths that have just built huge franchises is that they just spend time. They first of all, the first, like, let's say 5 to 7 years, it was spent on basically surviving and customer acquisitions, marketing, nurturing, and sales, right? And then they grew because they were getting cash flow. They had word of mouth. They had a systematized way of getting referrals. They increased their prices over time. And again, it takes time, right? Because they were able to do an enormous amount of volume because they just spent a lot of time, right? So you could say that number four, so do this with time, goes hand to hand with volume, the amount you actually do. So for example, in the space of marketing, for example, yes, at the beginning it will be direct response marketing. You're going to run ads and you're going to get customers from those ads. But with time, if you run really good successful campaign ads and for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, you're going to actually start building huge brand value instead of just direct response marketing, right? So even in just this gossip tabloid marketing sort of style that you run on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, on all these sort of organic platforms, paid organic platforms at this point, is that it becomes brand. So they just did it for over 10 years, over 20 years, over 30 years, and they actually cultivated a brand. So what does brand actually mean? It means you will be able to get customers for cheaper prices. You will be able to sell things for higher prices, and people are going to come back again and again more times. That's it. Like that's what brand helps you with. Okay. So doing the same thing over 10 years, over 20 years will develop a brand for your shop. So a lot of goldsmiths that I have spoken to said, I did the goldsmith thing, and then after like 9 months, it didn't happen. So I just went back to my job. 9 months? Like, again, obviously, you have to pay bills. Obviously, no one is doubting that. But if you are expecting things to go incredibly well in 9 months, I mean, we haven't seen that's the case. Actually, the one time which I'll talk about in slide number 5, but we have seen that relative success has been able to come for a couple of reasons for one person that I know. So this is the thing. Number 5 is boring repetition. So this is the story I wanted to talk about, is that I talked to a goldsmith in Australia that he had no money, flat broke, and he was not young either. He was in his late 30s, or he is in his late 30s. And what he told me is that he told me the whole story of how he actually built his business. Now it's obviously a different model, but when he was building it out, he said, I grabbed a phone, right? Grabbed his phone, and then he went on all of his Instagram followers, went on all of them, and he messaged them, basically given this offer. He was offering his services as a goldsmith to make wedding rings. At that point, he was not only making wedding rings, he was just making custom made jewelry. If you wanted earrings, bangles, he had a niche down because he was pretty desperate. Then he did all of them, right? 100. I don't remember how many, a couple thousand, I suppose. Very low thousands, 1,000, 2,000 max, right? So he did all of them. Then he clicked on each one of their profiles and then went to their followers, clicked on all of them, did the same thing to all of their followers. And what he did was he used the name of the person that he just messaged, right? And said, hey, I just messaged Laura, whatever, and this is what I wanted to offer you. Like, this is what I do. And he just inserted his offer there. But he did it to all of them, right? And he did it for, I think, about like 6, 7 months. And he was able to get his business underground, right? From, sorry. He was able to lift his business from the ground, right? From nothing, from a cell phone, right? Also did in those is that he scheduled future. So he got prepaid for future products, right? So that that process of messaging people one on one thousands of times, exactly the same message, 7 days a week, 4 weeks a month for 6 months straight, which is what he did. Like that's really, really boring. After 100, you give up most of the time, right? He just kept going thousands and thousands of thousands of thousands of that for 6 months, right? And he got his business off the ground and now is a very, very successful Goldsmith business. In fact, he has a couple of location stores and stuff like that. So boring repetition for a long period of time is what is, at least in this story, is what we have seen that pays off. Now, that is, for example, that was a story about marketing, basically, right? He had to put his offer in front of thousands of people manually with his fingers, with his phone, to be able to actually get traffic and actually get customers and be able to get paid customers, right? But if you are a goldsmith and you're struggling to get customers, which is the number one struggle in this industry, getting customers, then you can click the link in the description of this video, and I'm going to show you click by click exactly how to generate leads from Facebook and Instagram, which is prospects, right? People who are interested in your stuff, how to get those people to walk into your shop. And then after they walk into your shop, how to actually be able to sell them so that they pay higher prices.